Welcome back to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. I'm Jamie. That's Dave. That's Heath. We're taking a look at our wide receiver rankings for week number 11. Keep in mind, we got the news yesterday. Marvin Harrison Jr. not going to play, dealing with an appendicitis situation. Hopefully, it's only out for 1 week. Keep an eye on Chris Godwin. Maybe he's going to return for the Bucs. So lots of moving parts with some of these wide receivers. Darius Slayton, who's got a great opportunity in front of him with Jameson Winston starting, dealing with a hamstring injury. So we get any updates on these players, we'll give you the latest news for you here. But let's show you the rankings 1 through 12. A lot of stars on this list. I got to be honest with you, I had a hard time with where to put Amon-Ra St. Brown because I like so many wide receivers this week. So Emeka Egbuka I like ahead of him. Jalen Waddle I like ahead of him with his matchup against Washington. St. Brown obviously is a top 10 guy, but Nico Collins, Ladd McConkey, both great matchups coming off great games. And then we got Devontae Adams. Good news is he's going to play. Rankings 13 through 24. Here's where we started to get in some of the question marks for a lot of fantasy managers. And Heath, there's one guy on this list that a lot of people asking questions about, and that's A.J. Brown, because he was on a live stream earlier this week, and he basically said, don't start me in fantasy, and he's upset once again about the situation in Philadelphia. He clarified that a little bit. He said he just wants to see their offense play better and help the defense out. So I don't think he said really anything wrong. I think it was just the context and sort of you hearing the words and how he said them. Can you trust him, though? Because this has been a very frustrating fantasy wide receiver.
I think we laughed at A.J. Brown's comments and thought, well, nobody's actually going to drop him. My son came to me yesterday and said, guess what? Somebody dropped A.J. Brown in my league. I picked him up.
Wow.
Here's the thing. He's wide receiver 40 on the season. And if you watch what he's doing within the games, it's not like they're designing things for him or he's wide open and Jalen Hurts is missing him. It's understandable why he's frustrated. He's also still A.J. Brown. So just full disclosure, when I did my projections this week, he came out as wide receiver 34. I'm not going to rank him as wide receiver 34. I pushed him up into the top 24, but it's just because of the name. I don't see anything in last week's game that makes me feel encouraged that, oh no, A.J. Brown's fine. The only thing you hope is this is one of the squeakiest wheels we've ever had. Like we talk about the squeaky wheel game, he's had about 4 of them this year, but he couldn't be much squeakier than telling fantasy managers on Twitch to drop you.
I'll add another layer on it and why I'm a little more optimistic about A.J. Brown. He does better against man-to-man coverage. His target per route run rate on the season is 36.1%. That's more than double what he does against zone coverage, 17.4 yards per catch. 3 of his touchdowns come against man-to-man. Guess who plays the 4th most man-to-man coverage in the National Football League? It's the Detroit Lions. They're absolutely going to come out and try and do that against Philadelphia. That opens the door for Brown to get a few more targets from Hurts and maybe make a couple of big splash plays. So I'm a little encouraged by A.J. Brown. I would trot him out there as my wide receiver 2 this week.
I think most people will, but again, wide receiver 40, wide receiver 34 in the projections. You watch him play, it just does not look like there's a mesh between him and Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. They're saying all the right things.
Did you say mesh or mess?
There's a mess.
It looks like a mess.
Yes, I said mess with a lisp. Terrible situation right now for A.J. Brown. Hopefully things do get right in this big game against the Lions. And another guy that you're struggling to rank is Jameson Williams.
Yeah, and it comes down to, was last week the new Jameson Williams, and that's what we should expect from here on out. And it's been 2 weeks. We got to give him credit. He's been pretty good for fantasy for the last 2 weeks, but tough matchup for him. Obviously a tough matchup for his quarterback. Receivers have done well against Philadelphia, have usually played in the slot at least 25% of the time. So they get that advantage of working in the slot and getting away from Quinyon Mitchell on the outside. He doesn't do that. Jameson Williams doesn't typically do that. He usually plays out wide. 1 game this year where he's been in the slot more than 25% of the snaps. So that worries me a little bit. And just the fact that if he's going to get more targets, that's cool. I'll take it. But it's not going to be downfield stuff anymore. He's okay. He's on that border between number 2 and number 3 wide receiver. He's on the right side of it for me, too. He's a top 24 wide receiver. But I had a hard time ranking him because I can't just fully buy into, all right, he's absolutely now the new number 1 guy for Detroit. Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to take a back seat. Laporta's going to take a back seat. It's not going to work that way in Motown. Those guys are all going to take turns being the number 1 guy. This week, I think it's St. Brown with Laporta being the number 2, Jameson Williams being more the number 3, but he's got upside to still be good.
And Dan Campbell calling plays is obviously something that could benefit him, hopefully moving forward, but not the easiest of matchups. So in full disclosure, I send the list out to I send a blank sheet out to the guys. I usually fill it out first just to make it easy. I just, every week in this spot, Chargers wide receiver. So this time for me, it's Quentin Johnston. Last week, I went and looked. Last one we did this, it was Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
It's just who's the Chargers receiver that we're going to struggle to rank. And for me, Quentin Johnston. Good thing is Oronde Gadsden's going to play. Last week, though, we saw Johnston with 10 targets. The matchup against Jacksonville is absolutely fantastic. They are just bleeding fantasy points to wide receivers. In the 7 touchdowns to wide receivers in their past 4 games, 5 guys scoring at least 12 PPR points over that span. It's just an easy situation to buy into Johnston. However, Ladd McConkey, fine. Gaston, now that he's good, fine. And then it's a matter of, will this be a Johnston week, or will they maybe go back to Keenan, or maybe just avoid both? I don't know, but I like Justin Herbert, so I'm going to like Quentin Johnston. All right, let's talk about some starts and sits at the wide receiver spot here. Dave, I'll start with you. Interesting one that you chose here, Troy Franklin.
I think he's the number 1 receiver in Denver, Jamie. I mean, the numbers bear it out, and certainly when you watch him play, he's more explosive than Courtland Sutton. He's not as physical as Courtland Sutton, but he's getting open and he's getting targets more than Courtland Sutton. He's the team leader in targets by 7, team leader in catches by 1 over Sutton, 8 or more targets in each of his past 4 games, 4 touchdowns in his past 4 games. 3 of them have been in the red zone. Sutton has 4 touchdowns all season long, and this is a matchup where I think Denver's going to have to throw. I think his versatility lends itself to being a good option for the Broncos. I think Troy Franklin has arrived. He is a number 2 wide receiver for me.
I do like Franklin better than Sutton. Sutton, when we show it, it'll be the wide receiver that I'm going to sit this week, so I don't really get much into it.
Okay.
I just don't really want to trust either one, to be honest with you, just because Bo Nix and how he's struggling against the Chiefs defense coming off their bye week. So I would try and get away from them unless we're talking 3 receiver leagues. But I agree with you. I do think Franklin should get the credit for being the better of the Broncos wide receivers heading into this week. Heath, for you, you want to start DK Metcalf. Now, he has not been good, right. And for what it's worth, the Bengals have actually been good against opposing number 1 wide receivers, including Metcalf a couple weeks ago.
They've definitely been better against wide receivers than anything else. They've also been awful against everything. We're starting Aaron Rodgers. I think if we're starting Aaron Rodgers, you start DK Metcalf in a game where the Steelers have an implied total of 27.5. There's going to be a lot of offense in this game, and it's not quite the A.J. Brown situation, but it's similar. It's just a talented player in a situation where we expect a lot of points to be scored. Ignore the last couple of weeks, put him in your starting lineup.
Hopefully he comes through. I mean, again, it just feels as if we're starting him by default, but you said it, the Bengals defense at some point should start to give up production to wide receivers, and maybe that'll be the case. For me, I'm going to start Jawan Jennings. Really, it's about the matchup. He did not play in the first game against them in Week 3. Ricky Pearsall did 8 catches, 117 yards on 11 targets. We'll see if Pearsall's able to come back. But Jennings in the last 2 games, at least 14.1 PPR points in both those games. And Arizona, at least 12.4 PPR points to a wide receiver in every single game this season. 11 receivers have hit that mark, so their secondary struggling. I think Jennings will be the go-to guy, especially if Brock Purdy does start for the 49ers. Some guys that we're going to sit. Heath, you're sitting Tez Johnson. Dave, you're sitting Jordan Addison. Let's talk about those 2 guys quickly. Johnson is just your narrative again. Hate everybody from Tampa.
It's part of the hate everybody from Tampa, but it's also that he has 1 game this season with more than 4 catches. He has 0 games this season with more than 60 yards. He's scored 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games. So that's the reason that he's produced like a starter. If you think Baker's going to have a big day, start Tez. If not, don't.
I'll start Tez over Jordan Addison. He has yet to score even 10 PPR points in either of the 2 games with J.J. McCarthy. Jalen Naylor looks like he's on the same page with McCarthy. Addison does not.
Do you feel, though, just based on how bad the Bears secondary could be, last week we saw the targets because we actually saw J.J. McCarthy throw the ball more than 30 times. If the targets are there,
he needed to. They were playing from behind. I think this game will be closer. And I think the Vikings go back to a slower pace.
Just in a broad spectrum of this, if the targets are there for Addison, would you? If I told you right now he's getting 8+ targets, would you start him?
I'd start him with the idea that he could come through with more than 10 PPR points, so that would put him in the flex category, and maybe that's where he should end up being this week after all, but not a top 24
guy. It makes some sense. Again, he's just not been connecting with McCarthy. Small sample size, but not necessarily somebody you have to trust fully. All right, we're going to take a break right now. We come back and get into the tight ends, tell you about a position that actually is delivering for fantasy managers. That's next year on FFT.